Alright, so we're looking at 6.3 in your notes. We've discussed about how anytime we do something with percent, we can use a percent box. Now they do show you a way to do it without the percent box, and it's fine. It's one of those, another thing you have to remember how to do. Or you just stick rocking and rolling with the percent box. Okay? Yes. Okay. So what we don't see on these notes is a percent box, and so we need to make a percent box. So that's what we're going to do. So when we're talking about percent of change, we're talking about an increase or a decrease in something, and how much of a percent is that? So when we have in our original percent box, we're really thinking about the situation as part to whole. How many of you in here have done weightlifting? Okay, good. So for those of you who haven't done weightlifting, basically, or if it's almost like back in elementary school when you had to run the mile, or if you've been in PE and you had to run the mile and you had to get a better time than when you ran the mile, or things like that. So in weightlifting, we're going to talk about your maxes. Okay, so think about the first time you ever maxed on bench. Okay, versus where you are now. Let's say you first started out, Coach Hard made you start at 45 pounds. Okay? But today, you're at 125 pounds, being able to bench that. You grew, right? You got stronger. We can measure the amount of percent that is, how much percentage of a change that is. Okay? So how do I find the amount of change? How do I figure out, like if I'm thinking about distance on a number line and I'm going from 45 to 125, how do I figure out the distance between those numbers? What do I do? Subtraction. It's the range. Do I remember range from last year? Alright, big minus small. You're finding the range or the change in the amount. Okay, so we would have to take that, okay, and it would go here. This is the amount of change because it's part of the whole. It's not the whole thing, it's part of the whole thing. And we're comparing the change. Are we comparing the change to where you started or where you're ending? Where you started, okay? That's what's important, is where you started, and the change is measured where you started. So this, I call it the OG, or the original, okay? We're comparing the amount of change to where you started, the original. And our goal is to figure out the percent in that situation. So we try and do this in 5 steps. Step 1 is to identify the original amount, or your starting point. Step 2, Step 2 is to identify the new amount, or your finish line. This is like your range. And how do you find the range? Bri told us we subtract the two. So that's step 3. We're going to subtract the original minus, we're going to subtract the original minus the new. Now, can distance be negative? Can you ever have a negative distance? No. Distance is always going to be positive. Always. Okay? Even if we talked about this. Even if I put my car in reverse and I drive from here all the way to Warner Robins, TJ Maxx, in reverse, I'm going backwards in a negative direction, right? But I'm still adding miles to my car, okay? So distance is always positive, so to make sure we always have something positive, what do we use to ensure that it's always positive? Parentheses.
Oh, the 2 lines?
What are those 2 lines called?
The lines that they try to make it positive. What is that?
Model.
She's spelling it.
But he's on the right track.
What he said.
Y'all listen to what he said. Absolute
Value.
Thank you. I even acted it out for you. To make sure that something is always positive, you have to find the absolute value. Absolute value is always positive. And then once we find the absolute value, we just solve our percent box. And we all have proven that we can solve a percent box based off of our tickets out the door and our practices. So we have 5 steps, and they're quick, easy steps to do this, especially if we use the percent box. So let's apply these steps to example 1. It says the table shows the number of hours you spent online last weekend. We probably should have said on your phone last weekend, but I have a feeling it would have been higher than this. What is the percent of change in your time spent online from Saturday to Sunday? So step 1 that we wrote down is to identify the OG. So which one of these is the original time? Saturday. That's where we started. This was the original. That's all you do for identify. You label it. This is the original. Which means, which one's the new one? Sunday. Just looking at this, did this increase or decrease? Increase. All right, what's step 3? Subtract. We're going to do original minus the new, but we want the absolute value. Okay? So we're going to do the absolute value of 2 minus 4.5. Well, what is 2 minus 4.5? Negative 2.5, but because we're doing the absolute value, it's going to end up being 2.5. Okay? Nothing too extremely complicated there, correct? Alright, so then step 5 is our percent box. So I've got percent, 100 always goes in this box right here, nothing new there. And then we've got the change, the amount of change over the original. So 2.5 right here represents how much the difference, the change. Okay, so it's going to go in this box, in the change box. What's going to go in the original box? Well, we've already labeled it over here, so it should be really easy to find. The original was 2. So now I just have to find the percent. That's the missing part because it said what percent. The what was tied to the percent. So I'm going to cross multiply 2.5 times 100 times 100 gives me 250, and then I'm going to divide it by 2, which gives me 125. But because I'm in the percent box, what do I need to add? Percent sign. And that's all we do. Okay? So let's look at that triad number 1. We're going from 10 inches to 25 inches. What's step 1? Identify. Which one's your original, 10 or 25? 10, that's my starting point. And then step 2 is identify the new one, which is going to be 25. Step 3 is to subtract, but we want it to be positive, so we're going to do absolute value. So 10 minus 25 gives me negative 15, but if I take the absolute value of that, it gives me just positive 15. And now what are we going to do? Put it in the box. We've got change on top over the original. What's my change? 15. What was my original? 10. I'm trying to find my percent, so I'm going to cross multiply 15 times 100. It's going to give me 1,500 divided by 10. Gives me 150%. I would say that's a pretty big increase, wouldn't you? Yeah. All right, you try the second one. Try number 2. Alright, if you end up with a decimal, what do the directions say to do? Round to the nearest tenth. Remember, the tenth is the place right behind the decimal. There's tenths, hundredths, thousandths. There's no such thing as a one place. Alright, what was the original? 57. Which one's the new? 65. What was my next step? Subtract. But because I need it to be positive, I have to do the absolute value. So 57 minus 65 gave me negative 8. So I find the absolute value of negative 8, which is positive 8. Then I made my box. Percent, 100. I'm going to put a C for change and then OG for original. What goes in the C box? What goes in the change? 8. That was the difference. And then your original was 57. So I was trying to find the percent. So I cross multiplied. 8 times 100, gave me 800. Divided by 15. Gave me a really weird decimal, right? Like 14.0, was it 3? 3, 5, and then yada, 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 right? My direction said the nearest 10. What number's in the tenths place?
0.
So where am I going to look? To the hundredths, to the one behind it, the 3. What is it? 3 going to tell the 0 to do?
Not change.
Stay the same. Let it go. Let it go. Alright, 4 and above, 4 and below, let it go. So it would be 14.0, which we can just say is 14. Now because we rounded it, it's not equal, it's not exact, it's approximately 14%. You need a little squiggly line. It's similar, but it's not exactly 14%. It's really, really close, but not exact. Okay, so let's turn the page and look at example 2 on page 6. All right, example 2 says finding a percent of decrease. It says the bar graph shows a softball player's home run totals. What was the percent of change from 2016 to 2017? So we're looking for what percent of change. So percent of change. Percent tells me I'm making a percent box. Change tells me I'm making a percent box that's got the change with it. I'm only looking at what 2 years? 2016 and 2017. What was my original? 2016. How many home runs were in 2016? So there's my original, and then my new one. So I've got to do some subtraction here. What's the difference in the home runs from 2016 to 2017? 8. That's my change. Was this an increase or a decrease? It was a decrease. They went from 28 to 20, so they went down. Something had to have happened there. So when I put it in the box, I've got change over original. What did we say the change was? 8. And the original was 28. And I'm trying to find the percent because it said what percent. Now here it doesn't tell us what to round it to, does it? No. When it doesn't tell us what to round it to, you just need to round it to the nearest whole number. So the ones place. Okay. So it's going, X is approximately 29% decrease. That's not terrible, but it's also not a good thing either. All right, number 3 instead is looking at years from 2014 to 2015. I want you to find the percent of change from 2014 to 2015. Find that change for me. If you need to, round to the nearest whole number.
Why does she go down to 8?
They just like the number 8 is in this lesson.
Why is that funky?
Because it's picking up y'all's voices because I'm recording.
So they can hear my coffee. Is it right?
All right. Oh, what's your question? Okay. The nearest whole number, ones place. All right, what did we get? 44%. What did you get as the original?
Like 4.
What was your original amount?
What?
What, no, I mean like the original amount of home runs. Home runs, yeah, so your OG was 18, your new was 10, so your change, when you did 18 minus 10, you got 8. So when you made your box, your percent box, percent, 100, change over original, your change was 8, your original was 18. When you cross multiplied and divided, you should have got approximately 44%. Is what you should have gotten. Alright, so what you are going to do now is you're about to get back with your Breakfast Club members. And for the next 12 minutes, y'all are going to work through, or probably 10 minutes, you're going to work through numbers 12 through 21. 12 through 21, we're going to come back at I'll give you 2:17, and we're going to go over them. So, go.